All right, we are back. We're live. I was out on the farm fields all over the Central Valley, made it up into the mountains, the Sierra Nevada. You can see we got a nice fire going behind me. Skiing coming up. Maybe not tomorrow. I've got a lot of riding to do tomorrow. More 49ers talk to do tomorrow. The team, they did not make a transaction today. That was a first in a long time on a weekday. On weekdays, ever since the start of free agency, we had typically had a lot to talk about as far as new material, players filtering in. Not today, unless the 49ers have a late night special for us. But now that we've hit the second wave of free agency, I don't expect that to happen. Although as soon as you say never, then that's exactly when something happens. So I figured we'd do a 49ers Intel, a Q&A, a Brandon Aiyuk logic and reason Q&A session. So we could talk about just how wrong the mainstream social media has this. Everybody, to me, the problem is that everybody's acting like Brandon Aiyuk is a free agent right now. And he's not a free agent. Does that mean that he's certainly going to be with the 49ers next year? No, it doesn't. There are no absolutes in the NFL. But until we understand the actual business dynamics of what's at play, I don't think that we could appropriately handicap this situation, to put it really bluntly. The 49ers have Aiyuk under contract for this season. When you are a first-round pick, as Aiyuk was in 2020, a team has a fifth-year option. So he has played 4 years on his rookie contract. And now as part of his rookie contract, the 49ers last May exercised the fifth-year option. That is one season, fully guaranteed at a rate that is determined by the NFL based on the other high salaries at the position. And Brandon Aiyuk's salary as a wide receiver this year, that fully guaranteed rate, is just over $14 million. It's as simple as that. He is under contract with the 49ers at $14 million this year. The 49ers also, beyond that, have technical ball in their court power here, because they can theoretically franchise tag Brandon Aiyuk after the 2024 season. That'd be more expensive. That'd be in the 20s. They could franchise him, tag him again after the 2025 season if they wanted to. That'd be 120% of the cost of the first franchise tag. So you can see where this is going. The 49ers theoretically have 3 years of team control in front of them if they are willing to pay for it. Now, that's only if the 49ers are going to play ultimate hardball if they can't find a long-term agreement with Brandon Aiyuk. But it's important to set the ground rules because the team here has ultimate decision-making power. It's not fair to the players. I get it. The NFL free agency and rookie contracts and all that. I mean, you hear complaints about it all the time. They talk about it being the least player-friendly major sport as far as those contracts go, especially for the younger players. But that's just the way it is. That's the reality within which everybody is operating right now. So anybody who trades potentially for Brandon Aiyuk, anybody who's interested, is also probably going to want to give him an extension. The extension that the 49ers and Aiyuk have both been talking about, at least through the public. I don't know if they're actually negotiating with each other yet, but that wasn't expected to happen until after free agency started, and it may happen later in the offseason. But whichever team does have Brandon Aiyuk at whatever point in the future is going to have to pay him some money beyond the $14 million this year. And that's a big reason why the 49ers right now in this position, that's a huge reason why they have big leverage in this situation, because any team that would theoretically want to trade for Brandon Aiyuk is also going to probably have to pay him, which means that any team that acquires Brandon Aiyuk really, really, really is going to want him very badly. And if that ends up being the case, well, then the 49ers are sitting in the seller's position of power. But I don't think that they want to give up Brandon Aiyuk. I keep on going back to the King's ransom. It's not a theory. It's the King's ransom standard. That was the standard with Deebo Samuel. It was going to take a King's ransom to move the 49ers off of Deebo Samuel in 2022. It's going to take a King's ransom to move the 49ers off Brandon Aiyuk in 2024. They're sitting here with a very valuable commodity. Somebody who, in many ways, outperformed every other NFL receiver. 18 yards per catch. That led the league. The 49ers are not a volume-based passing attack. But Brandon Aiyuk still almost led the league in receiving yardage, despite the fact that he had like 70 fewer targets than some of the top receivers in the league. The efficiency was mind-boggling. It was out of this world. I've shown you so many of the graphics. I'll go ahead and toss a few more on in a few minutes after we go through some questions here. But when you see Aiyuk's efficiency, when you see his grades, both at the catch point and after the catch, he was awesome. Absolutely awesome. I mean, an outlier last year. So I know I'm pumping Brandon Aiyuk's value up right now. 49ers probably wouldn't be too happy with me, but that's just the way that it is. He was excellent as far as wide receiver one status went, as that X wide receiver in the 49ers offense. And on top of that, he was an awesome blocker. When I think of Brandon Aiyuk, and any discussion that you have about him and his value on the market versus his value to the 49ers coming up in the next month, when I think about Brandon Aiyuk and blocking, I think about week 1 in Pittsburgh. I was out there in Pittsburgh. It was a fairly hot day in Pittsburgh early in the season, right? Sun is shining out on that field. Second half, 49ers first drive of the second half. Steelers had started making some noise. The 49ers needed to deliver a counterpunch. So they ran a Christian McCaffrey play to the left side. It was a handoff to McCaffrey. And they asked Brandon Aiyuk to execute one of the tougher blocks in the book for a wide receiver. He had to take on Alex Highsmith, who was the Steelers' defensive end, the edge rusher. It was only chip help, but still, consider the fact that Brandon Aiyuk was the most efficient receiver in football last year at 18 yards per catch. Normally, those guys, they're field stretchers, they're smaller guys, they're faster guys. They're not taking on 260-pound defensive ends. I don't care if they have help or if they're chipping or what. They're just not physically in the mix with those types of players on the edge. But Aiyuk was. Aiyuk started that play with that block on the edge rusher. And it was a quick one, but he did his job. And then Christian McCaffrey got through the line on the left side. And then Aiyuk just took off. He went downfield and he went hunting. He's like, who can I pancake now? Where's the IHOP going to be? And he found DeMonte Casey, who is a defensive back for the Steelers, and he found him 15 yards downfield in the open field, a little bit ahead of Christian McCaffrey, who was working into that open field, and Brandon Aiyuk just flattened him. So on one play, about 4 seconds and 15 yards between, Brandon Aiyuk blocked 2 defenders, including an edge rusher who was much larger than him weight-wise, and a safety whom he pancaked. 65 yards later, Christian McCaffrey scored a touchdown. Order was restored, and the 49ers won. When you talk about Aiyuk and his development as a receiver, Shanahan's growing taste for him. Obviously, he started getting more targets after that first 6-7 week stretch of 2021 when he was playing, but he wasn't getting as many targets. I think it's been that toughness and that physicality that has truly set him apart and made him unique. And the reason that I bring up this story is because I think because of stuff like that, Brandon Aiyuk is very, very likely to be much more valuable to the 49ers than other teams. And I think he's going to be very valuable to other teams, right? Leading the NFL in yards per catch, being among the leaders in yards per route run. He was second behind only Tyreek Hill, being right up there in the catch point grades, the yak grades, all that stuff. All that is great, and all that is going to make you very valuable to the rest of the league. But the dog in Brandon Aiyuk, which we see through the blocking that I just talked about in Pittsburgh, that's what gives the comparative edge of importance to the 49ers. That's why I think they're going to value Brandon Aiyuk more than anybody else, just because he is such an integral part of what they do. And when that happens, then the market and the dynamics of everything at play are going to dictate that the 49ers are going to, the price for Brandon Aiyuk, for them to consider moving off of him, is going to have to be astronomical. It's going to have to be huge. It's going to have to be something that the 49ers can say, oh, okay, wait. All right, you're offering a top 10 pick, and you're offering a receiver that's cheaper, that might be able to pick up some of the slack from Brandon Aiyuk in the time being. Oh, we can pick an offensive tackle, one of the studs in this draft. We can plug and play, get better right tackle. Okay, fine, we'll do the deal. And we save money for Brock Purdy. But that is a price that, given the fact this is such a deep receiver class in the National Football League, that's a price that teams aren't likely to pay. And I don't think that it would be wise for the 49ers to lower the price much lower than that. That's all that I'm saying. You're going to hear so much noise about Brandon Aiyuk over the course of the next month, because the deadline for all intents and purposes to let go of him, to trade him would be the NFL draft. Because if the 49ers are going to let go of Aiyuk, they would have to get big-time draft compensation in return, and that's at the end of April. We're currently on March 19th. So you'll probably hear chaos. It was in the Deebo Samuel's interest to generate chaos a couple of years ago because he thought that could speed up the negotiating process. He thought that it could bring the 49ers to the table. To the 49ers' credit, they didn't budge with Deebo Samuel a couple of years ago. They didn't get it done until right before training camp. They waited for the other Tory Dandy clients to get their deals done. Remember DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown? Brown was traded right around the draft to the Philadelphia Eagles. I think he might have been traded during that first round. Deebo Samuel didn't go anywhere. He was that important to the 49ers. King's ransom, as I said. And DK Metcalf signed a little bit before Deebo. And then you had the situation where each of those three receivers, each of the three Tory Dandy clients led the league or led the negotiations in a different benchmark. It was ended up being fair for all three of them because that was a potential conflict of interest. So that was a wild offseason. I don't see this one being nearly as wild. I know that Ryan Clark is Brandon Aiyuk's agent. He's tight with John Lynch. This is a situation that I think could go much more smoothly, actually, than the one before. But Brandon Aiyuk deserves to be paid. He's very important to the 49ers, and the 49ers are also in a tight salary cap situation, which I've talked about a lot. I actually have not been able to go live since then. I have gone live, but not in front of a computer. So now's a good time to share this one with you. Brock Purdy is in that picture because he is going to be the man of the year for the 49ers as far as the financial situation goes. How the 49ers are surfing the salary cap wave, anticipating Brock Purdy's huge new deal. I get into the weeds here. I'll show you how I get into the weeds. Look, I take a look at Eric Armstead's contract. I mean, I break it down. I color code everything. So you should go ahead and check that out because we have got Armstead's contract. We've got details on Kyle Juszczyk's pay raise or pay cut. Slipped there. It was a pay cut. I got details on all the new 49ers contracts and basically how it all fills in and fits in with the Brock Purdy situation. Remember that a month ago, let's add this here. Remember that a month ago, I looked at this with Brandon Aiyuk, examining the 49ers salary cap outlook and how it applies to Brandon Aiyuk's future. So you could take this piece and you could take this piece and put them together. Mike, if you could toss this into the description, actually, I'm going to send it to you. Thank you. Thanks for everybody tuning in on the live, by the way. As I mentioned, anyway, check this out, by the way. It's worth the subscription to The Athletic because you can get all those charts. You can get all the financial explainers of how the 49ers are setting this up. Welcome in, those of you who just joined. We are here. We're on the West Coast. I've been on the West Coast for a few days. We're in Shaver Lake. We're in the Sierra Nevada. So still the 559 area code. And we're going to go skiing here in a couple days. Tomorrow, probably be around the area. I don't think I'm going to go skiing tomorrow. I have some important writing to do for you tomorrow. So speaking of writing, make sure you check this out because we go deep into stuff on that 49ers salary cap. I want to do a 49ers roster deep dive today. I want to take your questions regarding Brandon Aiyuk. Maybe I could take a couple questions and then we go into our 49ers roster deep dive. So I'm going to set this up for a 49ers Q&A. You know, I had this title ready, Fresno. I had tacos in Fresno from a taco truck. You haven't lived until you've had tacos from a taco truck in Fresno. It might be the elite taco truck city in the world. Probably goes toe-to-toe or even better than LA. Anyway, I had that ready. I'm going to have more from Fresno for you guys. I know there's a lot of Fresno people watching, a lot of Visalia people watching. I mean, I was in Strathmore yesterday, did the show with a great view in the background. That's 49ers territory. I was going through Porterville, California today, and there was a block with 4 straight houses with 49ers flags. So there you go. I mean, this means something to people. I see 49ers flags on cars. I see them on houses. And this is a month plus after they lost the Super Bowl. I can only imagine what it was like about a month and a half ago during the playoff run. All right, I'm ready for the 49ers Q&A here from Shaver Lake, which I think is probably also 49ers territory. We got Bakersfield in the house. I love it. Didn't make it down to Bakersfield this trip, but going to have to do it at some point. Mike is asking, and this is, how different could this roster look in 2025? I'm going to pop open the roster to start answering that question, but it's one that I'm going to have to circle back on because there's a lot to talk about. But I think it could be a major inflection point. Now, the issue is, and I talk about this in the piece, we don't know the salary cap yet for 2025, and we won't know the salary cap, and we won't know exactly how much money the 49ers are projected to carry over. But one thing I can tell you, as the teal here are all the new players the 49ers have added. The pink are players who are hurt and rehabbing right now. But they've added a lot of players. Some of them are one-year deals. I get it. But the teal is who they've signed this offseason. Then you wonder who they're going to re-sign the next offseason, who are they going to be the one-year deals next offseason, who are they going to cut, who are they going to trade. That's why you look at the salary cap sheet. And take a look at this number. I project the 49ers right now on the 53-man roster with 51 players filled. That number up here, where my cursor is hovering, I project them to have over $30 million in salary cap space at the start of the season. That $30 million you could use on in-season trades, or you can carry it over to help pay Brock Purdy in 2025. But the point is that the 49ers are not in a dire salary cap situation considering the carryover. They've got $22 million in room the next season. These are the 2025 books, but I only have 30 players right now projected under contract to make the 53. So you're going to have to fill out that roster with 23 more players or so. And you're going to have to pay Brock Purdy, and you're going to do it right now with roughly $22 million plus $32 million carried over. So let's be conservative and say only $25 million gets carried over. 25 plus 22. You'd have to do that with $47 million. If you backload Brock Purdy's deal and you keep on surfing the salary cap wave, and surfing the salary cap wave is something that I talk about right here in the headline. If you keep on doing that as the 49ers, I think you have a chance to keep a good portion of this football team right here together. I think it is absolutely possible. How much? I don't know, but it could look different. You could have those big inflection points for guys like Deebo Samuel. I don't think you'll have an inflection point if George Kittle stays healthy. Now, anybody could start faltering health-wise and end up like Eric Armstead. Eric Armstead essentially dropped out of the dependable A-list core when he missed 13 games of the past 2 seasons. And the way that Bill Walsh used to do it is he also always said it better to be let go of a player a year too early than a year too late. He wanted to make sure he kept cost efficiency and playing efficiency on the roster. He didn't want to give up a roster spot for somebody who's going to be missing 6 to 7 games a year. And that was the issue with Eric Armstead. So they asked Armstead to take a pay cut. Armstead said no, as was his prerogative. And then he signed a deal worth $17 million annually with Jacksonville. So is there going to be a repeat of that kind of situation? Are we going to start to see the mileage of the playoff runs, the really, really deep seasons? The 49ers have played 20-game seasons in each of the past 3 campaigns. Are we going to start to see some of that mileage take its toll? I don't think it did this year, but it could next year. These guys aren't getting any younger. Is there going to be somebody who the 49ers don't deem cost efficient anymore heading into 2025? That's going to be the question, and we just can't answer it right now. But I think that we've seen part of it answered here in this offseason with Eric Armstead now in Jacksonville. Nigel asked, Dobbs and Allen competing for the backup job, right? Technically, yes. I would say Dobbs is the favorite for that, considering that he started 12 games last season in the National Football League. But technically, they're going to be competing for QB2. Way too early to project Brock Purdy's contract. We got to see how he's going to play this year. If he continues to play at an MVP level, he could be the first $60 million guy. It's totally, if he plays the way that he did this year, he was the most efficient quarterback in football. He's one of the 3 best in football. And that consistency is extrapolated over another full season. The sky's the limit. If he gets hurt this year, just partially, even if it's a few games, or if the performance regresses, then you have a more complicated conversation. But if he plays the way that he did this year and continues progressing, because I expect that to be part of what the 49ers want, then you could start really talking astronomical numbers if you're Brock Purdy and his representation. This is a good point. I haven't noticed Kittle slowing down. I've thought that in arguably his past 2 seasons have been his best. Down the stretch of 2022, 2023, playing really well. It's not all about just racking up the receiving yardage in blowouts and, just garbage yardage. There was some of that in 2018 when he set the receiving record in the regular season. I think it's meant a lot more, right? Once these games have taken on greater significance, I think George Kittle has really, really been better, but the casual fantasy football fan probably hasn't seen that. But he's been really, really good over the past 2 seasons. And they just restructured his contract, which indicates that the 49ers are planning to even potentially extend George Kittle. Last year of his deal is in 2025. Could it be possible for the 49ers to trade up for a player they might like, or perhaps trade for Patrick Surtain? Would that put him over the top? Thanks, Jonah. Appreciate you. They could theoretically trade for somebody. I still think Justin Simmons is a more likely target. I think, at cornerback, it's interesting with Isaac Yiadom signing to see what happens there, and then also to see what they do in the draft. Don't rule out cornerback as somebody that they might take high up in the draft. Deommodore Lenoir is somebody who's eligible for an extension now, but I think next season probably makes a whole lot of sense to extend Lenoir. Charvarius Ward's entering the final year of his 3-year contract. You could always use more cornerback spots, but where they've got the injury question mark is with Talanoa Hufanga at safety coming off the ACL. And boy, a ball hog. Nobody has more interceptions in the NFL since 2018 than Justin Simmons. 30 picks in his NFL career. I mean, he's a true ball hawk. He's an absolute stud. He's available. And that safety market's been weird. I think it's definitely something the 49ers would be interested in. Is Jim Everett from Visalia? He wants, or is he just talking like he's from Visalia? When are we going to In-N-Out on Mooney? Well, I was just in Visalia for a couple of days, so it's going to have to be on my next trip. But we'll have to organize a big get together at In-N-Out. Go for Broke says you can't be considered a real 49ers fan unless you hate Dallas. Hey, do you guys like my national park posters on the wall? I just tilted my head so you could see them on that side. I think I've got Sequoia in there. I've got Joshua Tree in there. And I've got Yosemite. The 3 posters on the wall. I'll have to show you guys the posters at some point when they're a little bit more in focus, when they're not as far back. Eric Gomes likes them. Very cool. All caps. All right. We're going to do our 49ers in-depth roster look right now. The roster deep dive. This is what it looks like. Quarterback room for the 49ers. Set. Purdy, Dobbs, Brandon Allen. That's a damn good quarterback room. Last year they had Sam Darnold. This year they've got a guy who started 12 games last year and played really well in stretches. He didn't play great. Obviously toward the end it trailed off for Josh Dobbs. But the point is to find somebody that could bridge a temporary gap, not somebody who needs to go out there and play a full season. If you need your QB2 to play a full season, it's likely down the drain time for Super Bowl aspirations. But the 49ers have been the exception to that rule. I get it. The 2017 Eagles were an exception to that rule. 49ers had their third stringer, Brock Purdy. You just can't count on that every single season. So when you're out shopping for backup quarterbacks, you want somebody who's going to be able to hold down the fort for a temporary period of time. And you want a good room. You want smart guys. You want guys that are good with the team. I think Josh Dobbs showcased that last year. Brandon Allen showed that to the 49ers last year. It's all good. Running back, you like McCaffrey, you like Mitchell, you like Mason. Juszczyk took that pay cut. If you're the 49ers, you really like that. I think you add to this room moving forward. I think this is a room where the draft makes a whole lot of sense. Undrafted free agency makes a whole lot of sense. Maybe 2 players, maybe 2 bodies are added to it. Receiver, Aiyuk, Samuel, Jennings. Jennings is highlighted in yellow. The former teammate of Josh Dobbs and now the current teammate. Well, he's got to sign his tender, but potential future teammate of Josh Dobbs. Jennings is a restricted free agent. 49ers have tendered him. He's yet to sign the tender. We will see when that actually happens, but I'm projecting him to be on this roster. Ronnie Bell, Chris Conley, freshly re-signed punt gunner in the Super Bowl, did a really good job. Danny Gray, this might be the last chance for Danny Gray, training camp this year. I wouldn't be surprised the 49ers picked up another receiver either through the draft or free agency or both. Tay Martin's knocking on the door too. Danny Gray's spot on this 53-man roster is anything but safe. But I do think with the speed, the blow the top off the defense potential here, Danny Gray is going to get another shot. Injury plagued year last year, and then he just couldn't find his way into practice coming off of that IR. So you got to block. You've got to do the things that Brandon Aiyuk has learned to do so well if you're Danny Gray. And the clock is ticking. Pressure's now. Tight end room, I've got Cam Latu on the outside looking in. We could put him inside right here, and that would be 52 men on the projection. But Latu is just dropping way too many passes in training camp last year. And then he had knee surgery. He has an uphill climb. He's going to have to prove a lot. They gave him the redshirt year. But right now, I only see Kittle and Willis on the inside of this picture, and they can still try to add a budget tight end, or they can try to draft this position. The draft at tight end is nowhere near as strong as it was last year, though. So that might give Latu a little bit of a chance to make this roster, but his first training camp was definitely disappointing with those drops. Offensive line for the 49ers. There they are. Trent is going to be 36 years old. Banks, final year of his contract. Brendel, center, two more years of this deal. He signed a 3-year contract last year. 49ers could still get better play there. He was getting backed up a little too much last year. Wasn't terrible, but you look at potential upgrades, especially in the longer term, that center position's a premier spot for Kyle Shanahan. Feliciano, shaded in gray, they just brought him back. McKivitz, they just extended him. He was going to be back. Nice little floor there for the right tackle position, but the 49ers would love to raise it. They re-signed Ben Barch, who they picked up off of Jacksonville's practice squad. Barch is a guy they can continue trying to develop to take this spot right here, Aaron Banks' spot, if they can't pay Aaron Banks after this next season. It's going to be Jalen Moore's final year under contract. I would say he's probably on a roster hot seat. Nick Zakelj, they're looking at him with future center potential. We'll see how he develops. He tore his biceps last year, ended the season on IR. He missed some valuable practice time. And Spencer Burford, Feliciano replaced him as the starter at right guard. But, I mean, Burford did struggle. I get it. I would say this is a huge year for him, not just because it's year 3 and he's got to show some lasting power with the 49ers, but also because they're probably going to bring in competition here. They brought in Brandon Parker, who I don't have making the 90-man roster. He's over on the right. He's the right tackle. But I wouldn't be surprised to see the 49ers draft somebody like Graham Barton out of Duke, who could play guard, potentially move to center. Hell, he might even be able to fill in a pinch at tackle. There are a lot of quality linemen in the first round of this NFL draft. The 49ers are set to pick a 31. It wouldn't shock me to bundle up some picks and trade up just because you could see how crowded the roster already is. Somebody like Spencer Burford, I mean, he's going to be on notice this year. The 49ers want to facilitate cutthroat competition everywhere, but that offensive line has to get better, and they've determined that the best way to make it better with the most splashes is through cost-controlled draft acquisitions. And if that's the case, then this is going to get a whole lot more crowded after late April, and it's going to be crazy to track. It's going to be a lot of fun to track. And look, I got to fix my border here on the right. Isaac Alarcon, he's Alfredo Gutierrez's former teammate in college in Mexico. He's going to be the 49ers' new international exception. Moving to the defense, this is where they've got all those new players. Look at that new look defensive line. Bosa, Malik Collins, Hargrave, Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos. You saw how favorable that contract is to the 49ers. Gross-Matos is a cap hit of only $3 million this year, and then it's a team option in the second year before that cap hit rises. So they're going to get to test him out. They also have Jordan Elliott they could test out here over the next year. A lot of 2-year deals for the 49ers given out this season. Malik Collins also under contract for 2 more years, so they traded for him with Houston. Drake Jackson, clock is ticking for him. Kalia Davis is going to have some competition, probably with Kevin Givens, to try to make that 49ers rotation. They've got a very, very loaded defensive line right now with new faces, some re-signings. Guys are going to be trying to fight to make this 53. You know what else is loaded as linebacker? And that's probably because there's a chance that Dre Greenlaw starts the season on PUP. And if he does, you still got 6 guys here that can potentially make the 53. Warner, Devondre Campbell, pick up from the Packers, Jordan Elliott, Givens, Gross-Matos, Drake Jackson. Good looking room for, sorry, I said, did I just say Given? Sorry, Fred Warner, I was just reading. Devondre Campbell, D. Winters, Demetrius Flanagan-Foles, Ezekiel Turner, and Jalen Graham. I started reading off the defensive line. That was my mistake. Probably means I'm getting tired. But Turner's a special teams guy. Jalen Graham and D. Winters had to play a lot of teams last year. Obviously, Flanagan-Foles is one of the best special teams guys. I mean, this is going to be a battle. Even if Dre Greenlaw is not available, this is going to be a heck of a battle at that linebacker position. You could see how deep the 49ers are, which is just so damn impressive. Something definitely that needs to be monitored. The depth of this football team, that's going to set up a lot of big-time battles in camp. And we haven't even hit the draft yet. I've already slotted Isaac Yiadom in as the cornerback opposite Charvarius Ward in nickel situations. That puts Deommodore Lenoir at that nickel spot. But we haven't seen Yiadom play with the 49ers. All we know is that he was electric to close last season with New Orleans. Best football of his career. Can Chase Lucas push for the nickelback spot? I mean, I think it's doubtful, but he's been working there, and he's a big-time special teams player. What about Luter or Samuel Womack? I mean, everybody here. Luter, Womack, Ambry Thomas, all of those guys. I don't want to say they're on notice, but this is, I mean, it's a cutthroat league, and the 49ers are pumping talent into the room, and more talent's going to come to the draft. It's a put up or shut up year for so many guys. Safety position, that's where they still need at least one body. Is it going to be Justin Simmons? I think they can afford it. It just also depends on where that price ends up being. So I think they can afford it if I think that safety market doesn't go crazy, but Justin Simmons might be biding his time. They also need a return specialist. 49ers don't have one of those. In fact, I should probably add return specialist to this right here. All right, guys. 600 plus. It's a lot of people here for a random Tuesday night. No news, but wanted to get this set up. Welcome to Shaver Lake. Going to take you guys around the mountains tomorrow. Should be a lot of fun. Good shows coming in. Everybody liked the video, sub to the channel. And those of you who are just joining, how the 49ers are surfing the salary cap wave. This is what Mike is going to put in that description and what you should subscribe to on The Athletic. This is going to give you all the intel on the 49ers financial machinations, charts, everything that I put together over the course of the past few days. So go ahead and check that out. Everybody, thanks for joining. We will talk to you very soon.